With all the moves this offseason, what can you tell us about the plans at QB in Minnesota?
Laura, he is the plan in Minnesota at quarterback. And despite the fact that they tried to keep Sam Darnold, they tried to keep Daniel Jones, they had discussions with Aaron Rodgers, they looked at other quarterback options. Let's not mistake the fact that J.J. McCarthy is their QB1, and he has been planned to be their QB1 all along. You heard J.J. McCarthy talk today, coming off the torn meniscus knee injury last year, that he believes he is supremely ready to take on the challenge of becoming the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. They believe that too. We still need to see him out there. He still needs to prove he can be effective at the NFL level. But there's no doubt going into training camp, despite the fact that the team traded for Sam Howell on the final day of the draft, that J.J. McCarthy heads into the season as the undisputed Vikings starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think anyone was concerned that the Vikings were trading for Sam Howell to make him QB1. I mean, obviously they say, like, what is the plan in Minnesota? And it's obviously JJ McCarthy, right? I think they were obviously exploring other options as well. They want to see, what are all the various paths that they can take, whether it's Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones, et cetera, et cetera. But, the path came clear to them. It's JJ McCarthy, win, lose, or draw. Like, that's obviously, they're starting the JJ McCarthy era. How long it lasts, that'll end up being on JJ McCarthy's shoulders. But there's no lack of clarity around this right now, right? There's no, like, I agreed before and earlier this offseason that there was, like, questions because you didn't really know. But of course, right? Like, this is JJ's team right now. So it's an exciting place to be in. I think what's interesting is there's a couple things. When we look at Caleb Williams' last offseason going into this last season, and everyone kind of talked about how great the Chicago Bears were going to be because of the roster. They believed in the coaching staff at the time. They believed in the roster at the time. And they believed in the quarterback, because the quarterback is going to be awesome. And, they said, the expectations are through the roof. You can't, he's going to be great. No quarterback has ever gone to a better situation before. And that ended up not being true, mainly because of the coaching staff and the roster itself. But now we have this Minnesota Vikings roster, and we know it's a great roster. We know they can win 13, 14 plus games, right? We saw what Sam Darnold, we know Kevin O'Connell is indeed a great coach. We know, the defensive side of the ball is highly, highly well coached. We know the weapons are true. The offense in general has plenty of special elite there, right? We know that. Like, there's no speculation. We've seen it. We've seen it actually for a few years now. So it's not hard to imagine that if J.J. McCarthy is a legitimate, true, bona fide, worthy top quarterback in the NFL, worthy top pick in the, then the Vikings should be awesome. Like, the takes that you had about Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears last season, if you were all on that hype train, you should have about the Minnesota Vikings, unless you think that J.J. McCarthy is not that great of a quarterback or as great of a quarterback. Now, it's understandable that Caleb Williams, obviously being the first overall, he's going to have more hype. People saw him as a better prospect. Totally fair game. But if we're looking at this roster and this coaching staff with the Minnesota Vikings, the way how I kind of like to look at it is because always when we talk about young quarterbacks and first year starters and whatnot, we're always kind of like, you're always trying to look to see that peak, right? Especially when we start saying, like, oh, he could be the next Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or Josh Allen. And so you're always, like, looking to see, even like, let's kind of keep with the Caleb Williams comparison. It's like people were looking to see him absolutely light the league on fire. And anything short of that was seen as, like, clearly not good enough. And so I kind of like to look at it through a slightly different lens, where it's just like, what if J.J. McCarthy, as his first year starting, is just an average quarterback? It's just a pretty good quarterback. He makes some mistakes, makes some great plays, nothing special about him, but nothing inherently terrible either, right? Like, not a complete, like, oh my God, this guy is so overwhelmed. He had a 4 interception half. Like, this guy, he He has no idea what he's doing, man. He's seeing ghosts, like, outside of obviously like the doomsday scenario. If he's just an average quarterback, he's just like, yeah, he's pretty good. Had an average year, nothing earth shattering, nothing crazy. Not a, like, because Jaden Daniels obviously balled out and played great. So not Jaden Daniels. Even playing like Caleb Williams, but with a functional team, with a functional coaching staff. Wouldn't this Minnesota Vikings team then still be really, 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 really good? Would they be Super Bowl contenders? Probably not. You'd probably need some pretty good luck going into the playoffs with some injuries of like other teams. But if he's just an average quarterback, and again, I want to be very clear, I'm not predicting that JJ's going to be an average quarterback. Like, I'm just trying to, I always try to look for, in this type of situation, try to map out the various scenarios and what's more likely to happen. People that love to just come here with like final predictions and conclusions in, May 1st, like, it's just not what I'm going to do in this moment of time. But I just kind of think to myself, what are the odds of JJ McCarthy being at least average? At least just, I don't know, even if we just use like some pretty low numbers, like the 20th best quarterback in the NFL, the 25th best quarterback in the NFL, what would this Minnesota Vikings team look like? Would they still be really good? Would they be a 9-win team, 10-win team, 11-win team, 12-win team? And then what are the chances of that being just the floor for JJ? And what are the chances that he has a season like a Bo Nix? Or again, even Caleb Williams? We can't use Jaden Daniels right now because Jaden Daniels truly, I mean, he had the best rookie season of all time. And so I'm not going to set up that bar because that's an outlier. Those are always outliers. And although we've had a few of them recently, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, I'm not going to use that as the barometer. I'm not going to use that as a frame of reference, honestly. And so, because you can have a Caleb Williams year, you can have a Bryce Young year, you can have a Justin Fields year, right? Like there's all these different kind of, you can have a Trevor Lawrence year, although we'll use his second year, not his first year when he had Urban Meyer, his first year with Doug Peterson, very solid year. I think that was the year that he ended up winning the playoff games when he came back. That was either a second or third year, I forget, but still obviously solid. So it's just like, if we come away and just say JJ McCarthy had like a pretty solid year, obviously had some bad games, obviously had some bad drives. Because again, even Jane Daniels, who balled out, made some like really, even games that he was a hero in, made some really, really, really like, I'm like, how did he like make that? Like, that was a bad decision. That was a bad throw. Like, what are you doing? So JJ is going to do that. That's a guarantee. But if he just averages out to just being pretty good this season, again, we're not making long-term conclusions here, just this season, how would this Minnesota Vikings team not be awesome? How would they not be great? I feel like anything short of JJ going through true, just, oh man, he's going through a 5-game stretch where like things are just, the game's happening too fast and he's just not seeing the field, and now he's all in his head and he's overthrowing his receivers and throwing it at their feet. Like, anything short of that, like, how could you not think that the Minnesota Vikings would be pretty competitive? And again, I'm not saying that they're going to like, they're going to get to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, but it's just like, they should still be in that playoff mix. They should still be, a team that you don't necessarily want to face. Now, again, bringing in a young quarterback like JJ, you're definitely opening up the door to still go up against tough defenses and high-level defensive coaches that will be able to make JJ uncomfortable. That's what they always do against young quarterbacks. So you're always at the mercy of some of those things when dealing with a young quarterback. But that is also the benefit of now teaming that up with an awesome offensive head coach in Kevin O'Connell with legitimate weapons to work with. So I'm so fascinated to see how this season actually unfolds. I think it's like we always just go through such extremes where like someone either has the greatest, rookie year of all time, or they're an absolute bust, right? It's just an absolute, like, what did I just watch? And we often kind of view the lens of that. It's like, oh, JJ, he's not good. He's going to be overwhelmed. Therefore, the Minnesota Vikings are going to be bad. Or it's going to be like, no, he could play like Jaden Daniels. And if he has a Jaden Daniels season, like the Vikings can go to the NFC Championship games and maybe even win a Super Bowl. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm glad we mapped out the two extremes, and technically both are possible. But what's the more probable? Probably technically just a decent year, an average year. And considering how good this roster and coaching staff is, then where does that put the Minnesota Vikings? Probably then a pretty good team, a 10-11 win team. It'll probably come down to, and this is kind of true for every team, but like some of these true situational moments. is there that moment that JJ can rise to the occasion, can step up and still, even though he's kind of having a little bit of an average up and down year, is there, when they call his number in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go, does he hit, Justin Jefferson? Does he find his man? Does he make that throw? Does he not take that sack that now pushes them out of field goal range, right? It's like, to me, that's probably more likely they make the playoffs, they don't, right? Some of those really tiny little things where it's like, what are you going to do? This is the first time he was in this situation in the NFL. And it's like, it does feel kind of like a coin flip as to whether you survive that moment and it ends up being positive, or it's just like, I understand you want him to be better, but like, they should have called a timeout. What you're really going to try to rush that play and have JJ, rush to the line and call hike in that moment? Dude, this is his fourth game of the season. Like, you got to slow, you got to slow it down. So it's going to be fascinating. It's really, really going to be fascinating. But I encourage you all to just ask yourselves, what would the Minnesota Vikings look like if he just has an average season? I think it's an interesting question to ask. And I think the Minnesota Vikings would be a pretty good team. And then, of course, if you think that J.J. McCarthy has an above average season, well, then where does that really then put the Minnesota Vikings? At a very interesting place. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy and what their potential is this coming season? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.